children are refusing to speak their traditional languages, their local languages. In the time that the parents was growing up, would never have imagined saying to their parents. They feel like, well, what's wrong? Why can't I say it? School says this. I see it in internal professions that we want our children to go into: medicine, law, engineering, accounting, And now children are telling you, actually, no, I want to do graphic design. And parents are wondering, what's graphic design? Why do we respect elders? Why is it an important thing? What value does it bring to us as individuals, as people? Culture always evolves. No generation remains the same. So regardless of a globalized culture, children would always challenge what happened in the generation before. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast, Diaspora Mom. This is a podcast where we talk about all things parenting from the perspective of parenting in a different culture. Parenting, it's a journey. But when you have to do it in a culture other than that which you were born in, it adds another layer. Diaspora Mom provides an opportunity for us to discuss the issues, the challenges, and ways in which we can find support so that we can raise children who not just survive, but thrive. So today we have another interesting episode for you. I'm going to flip things on their head today. I'm going to be talking about a topic that has come about as I've started this podcast and I've talked to parents. So many parents have contacted me from home countries where they say, why is this podcast called Diaspora Mom? Because the issues that you're talking about relate to us as well. We're facing the same challenges at home. So today I'm going to be talking about when home changes as well. So what are we talking about? A lot of what we've explored or what we've been exploring in Diaspora Mom has been around how you go to a different culture and how that raises unique challenges, unique problems for parenting, and how parents adapt in that new culture so that they can raise children who thrive. And now, yes, the structural differences are there, the racial elements are there, but there are aspects of these cultures in other countries, especially from the global West, that are seeping home as well. Why? Because we have what we now call globalization. So when I was a child, and when I tell my younger ones and my kids this, they kind of laugh, because when I was a child, television was, a luxury. And the local televisions will start probably about 5 p.m. They'll have a few cartoons and the like. And then they'll go into programming, by which time you're probably going to study or something. You had very little interaction with external cultures because that wasn't part and parcel of your day. Now, scroll back to today. We have children who've grown up with cable TV at their beck and call. They're exposed to cultures from several countries, not just from that within their home cultures. And in fact, in a way, the TV that they are exposed to projects more of this foreign culture than what happens at home. So again, back to when I was growing up, the television that I watched, the series that I watched, a lot of the time were about our experiences. I remember growing up, there was a program, Tales by Moonlight. It will tell stories, African fables. That was the kind of media that we consumed. But our children are consuming completely different media right in their homes. But beyond that, they're also engaging with the external world from within their homes. So whether that be on TikTok or a lot of the different social media that children are on. And so their lifestyles, their experiences, their thought processes is completely infused with cultures that are foreign or alien to the ones they live in. What's more, a lot of these culture that they're exposed to is not passing through any filter or any layers. So they are receiving those cultures raw, because anybody who has a camera, who's got a device, who's got a connection to the internet can project on any one of these platforms. And children may not necessarily know which platforms are, if you like, safe. And that's something that we will talk about. Which platforms, for instance, that may be projecting some form of idea that may not be congruent with what they're already used to. But they're consuming all of that. And as a result, they are being exposed to things that parents themselves may not be exposed to, because at the end of the day, the channels your children are watching, the social media that they're consuming are not the same ones that parents are consuming. And therein lies some of the challenges when your home starts to change as well. And outside of the social media, outside of the TV, schools are changing too. We will recall from episode 1, we talked a lot about this in one of our episodes when we were discussing what are the curriculums that our children are engaging with in schools. We find that a lot of our schools, especially private schools, the ones where that parents that are maybe a little bit more affluent take their children to, may be adopting curriculum that are not domestic. They may be adopting the British curriculum, Swedish curriculum, American curriculum. What that means is that it's not just the subject matters that they're being taught. It is also the values that underpins that curriculum and what children's ideas are about society, about some of the fundamental principles that we ordinarily would have projected to our children: respect, independence, autonomy, communalism. All of that discourse is completely different in these environments. Flip that on its head. These schools may also not be teaching at all our history. I understand that in some countries, even where they start to say, let's learn our domestic languages, our local languages, they then get withdrawn again. So they're not learning our languages, they're not learning our history. So understand that our environment is also changing. A lot of these children are growing up in large metropolis where the typical support network of uncles, aunties may not be the same. It's a much more diverse environment. So yes, culturally, we may still be a lot more aligned. Culturally, we may still be going to the same sorts of events and all that. But they may not be going to grandma, grandpa just down the road or uncle down the road as we once used to do. And therefore, we have a completely different idea of what the community is and what the support systems are. The other area that perhaps we might also want to think about is faith systems, because that is very crucial in our communal environment. And I'm sure for a lot of parents, they would agree that the way they related with faith, the authority that was involved there, the kind of principles and values that were being taught when you were younger as parents is very different from how the same faiths are preaching the same things or teaching the same things. So that also brings another, if you like, dimension to this space. So for instance, a very typical one, dressing. I remember that when I was a student on campus, there were certain Christian denominations that will decide that certain kinds of dressing was not appropriate. And I'm sure the same kinds of, discourses are happening in other faiths as well, whichever one you belong to. And therefore, from the point of view of a parent who is now bringing up children at home, in this new environment, there are specific challenges. I have heard stories. Parents have reached out to me of discussions that they're having with children in home countries where they feel like, I don't understand my child, or my child doesn't understand me, or the children are resisting some of the ideas that parents want their children to inculcate. So, what are some of these, for instance? I think I've already mentioned some of them. Language. One of the things that parents are particularly concerned about, or at least some parents have been concerned about, is that children are refusing to speak their traditional languages, their local languages. They're so steeped in perhaps English language in Nigeria that when parents speak to them in their traditional languages, children will respond in English or not at all. And oftentimes the language gets lost because no one can speak that language in the home anymore. Dressing is another one. The way that there's always a tussle. I mean, I think that's a generational issue. There's always a tussle between the older generation and the younger generation about what is appropriate dressing. And I think that's normal. But I think when you add the added layer of Western influences, international influences, global influences right in the home, it becomes even more challenging. So it's not just about, can I push the boundaries? It's about sometimes for some parents, things that are completely quote unquote alien. So parents are having discussions, for instance, about not just what is appropriate attire to wear, not just what is the length of the attire to wear, but for instance, a lot of parents have talked about hair. How should children carry their hair, especially in this age, male children? Is it okay for them to have cornrows? Is it okay for them to have braids? Is it okay for them to have dreads? That is a challenge that some parents are exploring in this moment. Beyond that, there's also questions around gender roles. So if children have gone to schools where they've been taught certain ideas around autonomy, they've been taught certain ideas about challenging authority, they come home, and of course, what do you expect them to do? They will experiment with what happens in the home. And remember, this is being reinforced by the media that they're consuming. So in the media, they hear children, for instance, saying certain things that they may ordinarily, in our time, in the time that the parents was growing up, would never have imagined saying to their parents. They feel like, well, what's wrong? Why can't I say it? School says this. I see it in media. What's different here? And you see tensions in the home happening there. Another area that a lot of parents have explored with me as well is in careers. Of course, every parent is hoping for their children to do well, hopefully better than they did. That is, if you like, the generational aspiration that we all look forward to. Now, in a lot of global South families, there are traditional professions that we want our children to go into: medicine, law, engineering, accounting, And now children are telling you, actually, no, I want to do graphic design. And parents are wondering, what's graphic design? And they tell you something that you, the parent, does not even know or understand about what the scope is in that profession. Sometimes it's actually the better thing for the children to have, but parents do not understand that. And so there are those challenges. And even in the schools sometimes may not even be able to give them the right advice around some of these matters. So these are just some of the areas of tensions that a globalized world brings right into our home. Now, as I said, culture always evolves. No generation remains the same. So regardless of a globalized culture, children would always challenge what happened in the generation before. And parents have always had to navigate that. So that is not new, or that is not unique. The challenge becomes when the children's idea about profound principles, fundamental ideas, values, is different from those of the culture that they are in and the culture around them. And it is not just about the tension in the home, but it's about the dysfunction, the dislocation, and sometimes chaos, which affects relationships within families, where children may begin to feel that my parent does not understand me, my parent does not love me, my parent does not support me. And then parents are thinking, I am doing my best. I'm doing everything that I can. Why does this child not understand that the reason why I'm asking them to do this is because it's in their own interest? So we've talked about some of the examples of challenges that we face. Next, I want to sort of explore, how do we address this? First, the genie is out of the box. We cannot plug it back. And I don't think globalization is going anywhere fast. So I think as parents, even in home countries, it is our responsibility to understand what is happening and find ways in which we continue to raise grounded children. Children who are grounded in their identity and who are able to evolve in a way that is true to the identity of self, but takes on the environment around them in a way that enhances, not diminishes them. So first and foremost, one of the things I would say is this: parents have to be intentional back home. We cannot take it for granted anymore that the children are at home, so they understand our culture and they understand what we're doing. So there has to be intentionality from the point of view of parents to say, we are going to have spaces to discuss. Who am I? Who are we? Why do we do the things we do? Why do we respect elders? Why is it an important thing? What value does it bring to us as individuals, as people? Those are conversations that I think are essential to have. And we should start having those conversations not as one big conversation, but as things that we drop in from very early stages so that our children begin to understand the why. But we shouldn't do that in isolation, because the children are not hearing those messages in isolation. They're hearing those messages vis-a-vis other things that are coming into their space, as I said, from all of these other sources. So explore with them why we do these things this way and why others do things that way. So for instance, one of the things that I have done personally is respect. I've explained to my child why we are big on respect from our culture and what respect means and how that adds value to us. And that respect actually is not unique to us. It is just how we express that respect and how we earn that respect. That different cultures have different layers of meaning around what respect means and how you express it and how you earn it. And I think when you have those conversations, children will begin to understand the why. Teach them what the value is in your culture. Don't take it for granted that they will just know. Tell them the whys. Show them how grammar is involved in their lives. Show them that in our culture, for instance, one of the conversations I have had is that in our culture, parents are involved in children's life a lot more, but also there is a reciprocal responsibility that children also have to be involved in the parents' life much later in life as well. So there is a reciprocal thing. There's a symbiosis going on there. Help them to understand that difference so they don't feel like you are just suffocating them. The other thing to do is listen to your children. Understand where they are coming from. I know that a lot of us in our culture, children are seen, not heard, and children have to respect because it is the case. And that is so. However, try and understand that they are in a world that you are learning with them as well. This is an area that you also are not rooted in. And therefore, the only way in which you can explore it fully with them is to hear them, is to understand it, and then put it in the context of the wider scope of experience that you have. And I think if you deal with your children in that way, hopefully they will trust you more and come to you when they are having some of these challenges, some of these questions that they are asking. Now, another thing that I think is really, really important to do is that you allow spaces for children to evolve with you. Show them how you are evolving as well. Tell them some of the things that you did differently in your time from those of your parents, so that they can see that growth is normal, but that they need to be sure that they understand why they are changing whatever way they are changing. That they are not just taking on ideas because they've been shown this in the social media or because they've read this somewhere. And that for them to be truly, truly evolving, they have to understand the wider context and be present in their lives. It's really important. Be present in their lives, because it's only when you are present that you will know what is happening and what their thought processes are. Underpinning all of that, however, is the importance of helping children to understand that we all have identities, and that even whatever values or whatever new ways they want to behave, they need to ensure that they are whole, that they will always be uniquely them, and that the values that they have has to come into the pot. They have agency, and they have to determine what it is they take out of this new environment that they are in and what it is that they leave out. Because if they do not, first of all, respect their own culture, in other words, ask them, what is it about your culture are you maintaining? What is it about your culture that is good? Have those conversations with them. Ask them, what is it about your culture that you are also sharing with others? Because there must be things that are good about your culture. There must be things good about your identity. And only in that way can you be an equal, if you like, interlocutor when you're discussing these things with those from outside of your culture. But if you imbibe everything without knowing who you are or what you are, you get diminished, you get erased. And if you get erased, something fundamental happens from within you. So have those conversations is really, really important. And ultimately, as I always say, as challenging as it may be, you'll be okay. Because remember, when you challenge your parents, you grew. And sometimes children actually look back and say, actually, and that's the other thing I want to say, that just because your children are not saying yes now with you, doesn't mean they're not hearing you. So please keep having those conversations. Keep having those conversations, even when it feels like they're challenging you. Because as they grow and as they have different experiences, they come back and reflect and say, oh yeah, actually, I quite like the fact that I am from a communalist environment, that I can have people that I can depend on, people that I can reach out to. Yeah, I was asked to leave my bedroom a number of times so that elders who came home could come and sleep, which I probably may not have liked. But yeah, I can see the reason why I did that. And this is the value. This is what I learned out of it. This is how I grew from it. Show them role models. Role models are always, always important. Children need to see. Show them role models. If you have a young boy, show them an older young man who is embracing their culture and flourishing in a globalized environment. That is important, because if they see that, they would want to hopefully imitate that as well. So we've covered quite a lot of ground. I hope that some of this has been very useful to you. What have we said today? 1, globalization is happening and home is changing. And this idea of parenting across cultures is not just happening in the diaspora, it is happening at home too, albeit from a limited perspective or level, because your children at home may not be engaging or navigating some of the issues around difference, some of the issues around identity, some of the issues around accent, some of the issues around race that you may have to engage with in the diaspora. But yet, values, principles, ideas are streaming into your home. Your children are engaging with that. And they're engaging with that without the backdrop of experience and cultural affiliation that you have. Be patient with your children. Create spaces for discussions. Let them understand the why. Don't just always say, this is the way we do it. Let them understand the why. Grow with your children. Give them some space to explore what is safe to explore and what perhaps is not, because. Show them the why you cannot go this way, but this is okay. Have those conversations with them. Give them role models. Let them see people who are effectively navigating this space. Even within the social media, do your own Google searches by yourself and say, oh, I know you like to watch it. What about this person? Have you seen? Listen to this program. What do you think? So that children can explore in a safe environment what is valuable, and they can keep the essence of who they are as they embrace the cultures around them, so that they can become rounded global citizens in a globalized world. I hope this was helpful today. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. Please put your comments, your questions in the comment section. And if you've not already done so, please like, subscribe, share. Thank you very much. Until next time, bye-bye.